Thank you, everyone, for joining us. The topic today, and this is our inaugural episode, is how to create a viral marketing campaign. And we're not talking about just fluff. We're talking about real how-to content. I know both of these individuals that are on, and Justin, when he joins, has actually participated in a lot of influencer marketing campaigns. So I'm really interested in learning from you. I mean, I've got a few things to share, but I'm very interested in learning from you, Sam, and you, Chelsea, and you, Justin. Chelsea and I have ran a campaign together through my extended team, so we could talk a little bit about that and maybe some other things. But again, we're really talking about how to run these things, not just fluffy talk that I've seen other places. And I know because people run influencer campaigns, they get frustrated because it's not working for them. Here, we want to show them what doesn't work and what does work and really getting to the nuts and bolts of it. One last final thing. This is kind of a weekly show that we're going to run for 10 weeks, and we're going to see what Blab has to offer the audience, our audience, for everybody that's participating here. We're a big believer in platforms like this, so really interested in your feedback at the end of it to see what you thought of the platform as well. Okay, so let's get started. So influencer marketing, in the last couple of years, if you look at Google Trends, it's been what they call a breakout word, meaning this is something that's showing growth of over 5,000%. But clearly we're in kind of an arbitrage situation with influencer marketing because there's more, there's a massive supply of influencers, but there's not a lot of marketers that are running true influencer marketing campaigns. So right now, dollar for dollar, I'll tell you, my experience, influencer marketing is far more effective for the money than any other forms of marketing that are out there. Now, I know a lot of people might be rolling their eyes, but the truth is, if you run it correctly, the ROI is far greater than anything that I've seen out there. So I'm going to jump right into intros and get started on this topic. And Sam, feel free to challenge me. Chelsea, Justin, challenge me on anything. I'm a big boy. I think I can take it. Most of the time I can take it. So I'm going to start with Chelsea. Chelsea works for Impulse, or owns Impulse, and it's a creative lab that she runs, and it's based in Santa Monica. She does influencer marketing campaigns. She also participates in them. She's participated on some of ours. So Chelsea, if you could just give me in 140 characters or less your slogan around influencer marketing, and then maybe a brief intro about yourself, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. I mean, I really like to say that influencers are their modern day reporters. We used to go to the Today Show to watch Katie Couric and Matt Lauer to find out what's going on in the world, what the trends are, what's hot, what's not, breaking news. And now influencers really have access to share a message in 140 characters via Twitter, or 15-second video via Snapchat or Vine. And their following, their influence is creating so many impressions and engagement in the world. And brands are starting to realize that if they want to amplify awareness around their campaign, their strategy, their product, these influencers really have the tools, tips, tricks, and audience to market to. And I've been an influencer for the past 8 years before the word influencer was really born. So it's been an incredible journey to see how it's grown and evolved, and also been taken more seriously. But I love influencer marketing. I think it's here to stay, and definitely one to not overlook. And my background, I'm currently 24 years old. I started working in the millennial influencer media space when I was 16. I started off working in this space because I was actually so frustrated that all I was hearing was negative stereotypes about this generation. And I started working in this in the millennial space before the word millennial really existed. We were the teenagers, also the demise of the future. And I said, well, that's not really empowering this generation at all. And I want to do something to possibly change that stereotype. So that then led me to creating my first radio talk show at 16 called Teen Talk Live. And it really snowballed from there, working into television for local, then national, and then working with various different media platforms for the past 8 years and creating and pitching content, catered towards that millennial demo with the influencer spectrum. I said, you know what, there's only so much one person could do, me, myself, and I teamed up with two incredible people out here on the West Coast to just do what I do on a larger scale: influencer marketing campaigns, social strategy campaigns. We do full service video marketing and production over here. So it's very fun, never a dull moment, and happy to be doing hangouts like this to further spread the word and also learn from people like you guys.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was quite an explanation. I got the full, I didn't even know half the stuff that you just said about yourself. And we've worked together in the past. So Sam, you're a partner at Sensei Marketing. You've written a book on influencer marketing. You also write for Huffington Post. Maybe a brief introduction about yourself and a 140-character slogan on influencer marketing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to join this conversation. For me, influencer marketing, and actually we had a question in the comments here, which was, what is influence marketing? So I think we should probably get to that at some point on the top of this, Mark. But for me, influencer marketing is really not about the influencer at all. And that's, in my mind, what's wrong with the entire influence marketing category and people calling themselves an influencer and trying to be an influencer and gaming whatever social networks they can to be an influencer. Influence marketing is, for brands, about the customer. How do you sway customer purchase behaviors, not just drive impressions? Because if all we're looking to do is drive impressions, we have advertising for that, right? We don't need influence marketing to do that as effectively. Influence marketing is important if you know how to change consumer purchase patterns. And that's really what I'm about. Sam Fiorella, I am the author of Influence Marketing with my co-author, Danny Brown, which came out about a year ago. I'm also the professor of marketing at Seneca College, where I teach a post-grad program on influence marketing, and a partner at Sensei Marketing based in Toronto and New York.
Wait, so you're teaching a course on this now? I had no idea.
Yeah. Well, the book was
the only course in North America on influencer marketing I've ever heard of.
You know what? I've not heard. Well, actually, I've heard of other courses, but because our book has been translated into a text for postgrad programs at a few universities, Georgetown, Seneca, and a few others. And so because Seneca's in my neighborhood, they said, why don't you teach it? You wrote the book.
So are you live streaming these classes or?
No. These students pay a lot of money to be part of this program. I didn't want to stream them out.
Okay. All right. So just a little housekeeping notes, and I can't stand too many of these things, but one of the things I learned from a previous blab, if you do /Q, that'll ask a question. So /Q, then ask your question. If you want to let everyone know about this blab, there's Tell a Little Bird on the left-hand side. So you can then let everyone know that on Twitter that this is going on currently. I am recording it. This will go up on Forbes on my column, so you can see the replay later on if you miss anything. I'm hoping you're taking notes because I know I'm going to, but if not, then it will be recorded and will be posted on YouTube and Forbes. Okay, so let's jump into it. I know Justin's struggling to get on, but until he does, let's just jump right into the question. So my first one is for Chelsea. And Chelsea, I don't mean to hit the millennial card as often as I do, but does influencer marketing also work on millennials? Is it as effective, more effective, less effective? What's kind of your opinion on that?
Well, in my opinion, I think influencer marketing is the most effective amongst that millennial demo. Those 18 to 35 right now, we are over 80 million people strong in the U.S. alone. I think millennials are the first generation to actually grow up with the internet, grow up with social media. So it's that much more native to us. I feel like also millennials really created influencer marketing, not knowing that they were starting such a trend in advertising and marketing, but the people that really grew their audience and significant traction, that's how influencer marketing was born. And then we just tapped into it from the marketing and advertising perspective. So yes, 100%. I think it's very effective amongst millennials and also Gen Z, the generation under millennials.
And so just following up on that, what has been your favorite influencer marketing campaign? Can you kind of explain it? And then later on, we'll get into how you ran it.
Wow, there's been a lot. One of my favorite influencer marketing campaigns was actually one of the very first ones I was ever a part of. And this was back in 2009. And it was the You by Kotex campaign. And for all the gentlemen on the blab, this is definitely more of a feminine hygiene product for the ladies out there. But it was a sub-brand off of Kotex that was really catered towards that millennial demo, those who are 18 to 35 who wanted to talk about, sort of a taboo topic, something that's not very comfortable to talk about amongst, whether it's with your mom or your peers. And You by Kotex really wanted to create an influencer platform where they got all these different influencers who really were brand ambassadors to talk about it, to make it relatable, to make it understandable, to make it less taboo. And that was a really personal influencer campaign that I was a part of. It actually led me to my first mission trip to Africa, where we brought hundreds of thousands of sanitary hygiene products over to Nairobi, Kenya. And that influencer campaign actually lasted about 4 years for me. And it was an absolute blessing in my life. And it was one where, the message was really effective, especially to young women who don't have an outlet to really learn about their own body. So that was by far one of my favorites.
Okay. And how was that set up? I mean, can you walk us through that process?
Sure. So they actually were incredibly, I like to think, ahead of the curve, and they really attacked the millennial audience to co-create and collaborate in building this brand. I mean, even down to the color of the box. It was a true collaboration effort between, their audience, their consumers, and the actual brand itself working together to build the end product. And I think collaboration and co-creation is everything that millennials are looking for influencer campaigns. They want to feel like they are a part of the creation of the campaign. Their voice is being heard throughout the campaign. They're a part of the strategy for whether the campaign is, targeting a specific audience or in the social sphere. Millennials really love to get involved. They love to be engaged. So You by Kotex did that totally right. They crowdsourced effectively. They then built a platform, youbykotex.com, where they had guest bloggers, influencers, telling their personal stories. So there was a lot of engagement and a lot of personal information being shared on this platform. There was also an ambassador media tour. So some of their ambassadors, I was one included. We were getting FaceTime and airtime on 17 magazine and Teen Vogue and all the other different great outlets out there where we were actually talking to the audience. We were directly engaging in all of the You by Kotex fans. So we went on a multi-city tour where there were stadiums full of young girls where we were talking about feminine hygiene care. We were talking about the taboo topics. We were talking about all those awkward moments that every girl goes through. So it was incredibly authentic. It was relatable. There was a family by the end of this campaign formed around the brand. Of course, there was social strategy implemented. I did a series of Twitter chats for them where we got even more, socially connected to people who couldn't be present, on the media tour. So everything from experiential opportunities on the ground. They did have Khloe Kardashian come to some of the events, which created, tons of excitement and craziness. So they had that celeb face attached to it. They had in-person experiential opportunities. They co-created and collaborated with their audience to create the product. And then they did a social campaign through a series of Twitter chats and influencer tweets and content created around the brand.
Okay, so Sam, I mean, that's great if you've got a big budget, right? What if you don't have a budget? Have you had any experience with influencer marketing campaigns that had kind of startup budgets?
Yes. And I mean, influence marketing is, like I said at the beginning, for me is really all about swaying consumer purchase decisions. And you can't really do that unless you know who your audience is. One of the ones that I talk about all the time is a campaign that I actually ran a number of years ago for a company called MV1 Canada, which is the Canadian distributor of a vehicle for people with disabilities. And it's the first purpose-built vehicle for people with disabilities available in the world. And so the Canadian distributor said, listen, we just spent $2.5 million trying to get approval in Canada through the various government regulations to get this car here. We have no money left for budget. We are not going to open up dealerships, like Ford and Chrysler have dealerships to sell this car. So we need to build a market. How are we going to do that? And so we really needed to understand the audience, but they had no budget. And so we chose an influence marketing campaign, but we took a slightly different approach than just finding people. Actually, I shouldn't say that. We found people who were what we believed influential in the community. And by influential in the community, I meant they had a lot of followers. They were respected amongst people with disabilities. And we asked them to talk about us. We got them involved in various content generation campaigns. We got them involved in online videos like what we're doing here. And we started asking them to talk to their community about our car. And what we had is we had a lot of impressions. We were very, very successful. The problem, though, is that it did not translate into actual product sales. We did not move the needle at all, despite the fact that we had market share online of people talking about our product within our demographic. And so what we did, and again, we had no money at this point, so we walked away from like the clouts of the world and all those types of tools that had metrics around how popular people were. And we started going to who is our customer? We started talking to the customer. Now, this just took a lot of groundwork because there wasn't budget to do anything more fancy. And we picked up the phone. We sent emails, we spoke to these people, and we said, what influences you to buy a product or not buy a product? What are your challenges today with vehicles? Do you have a vehicle? Has it been converted? Do you have like a Chrysler minivan that had the floor taken out and a ramp put in? What are the problems? Where do you get the money for that? Is that funding, or do you get it on your own? Do you work? Do you not work? Anyway, long story short, what we understood very quickly is that there was 6 different types of consumers, and they had unique situations around each one of them that made their purchase decision one way or the other. And so what we were able to do is then identify who within the community had a direct impact on how they made that decision based on what that challenge was. And so we took that template for those 6 customer profiles that we figured out simply by talking to customers, understanding, and then, getting those categories. And then we just started pushing out social content through individuals that we felt were respected by those people and that could move that needle. So that's a really simple example. We went from having not a single car sold in the country to selling more cars than Jaguar in Canada, simply because we broke away from social celebrities and people with tens of thousands of followers, and we started focusing on the customer. And in fact, that was the genesis of the book. That's what gave us the idea to create this new model of influence.
Okay, so I feel like just looking at the comments, I should step back a little bit and kind of explain influencer marketing because, Stam, you did a good job up front, but there's different types of influencers. And let me take a stab at it, and then you two can chime in and tell me where I'm wrong. So from my perspective, in our experience, there's really 3 levels of influential people. There's probably 100 micro levels. So for us, when we're looking at doing an influencer marketing campaign, we look at first of all, objectives, and then second, industry. So if you're in an industry, like if it's a B2C industry, you're going to treat influencers differently than B2B. So B2C, we're really looking at people that can move the needle. In sports, it would be somebody with a huge following that anytime they put something out, has a massive reaction and massive engagement. In B2B, it's a lot different. You're looking at influencers that either have blogs or are on Twitter or other channels that businesses get their information on, maybe LinkedIn. So that's the first step. The second aspect of influencers for us is there's different levels of influence. One would be someone that you'd reach out to that's got maybe 3 million subscribers on their YouTube channel that could push out a message very, very broadly. And get a lot of reaction, but it might not be your target reaction and the target audience that you're looking for. And then the second level or tier of influencers are people that have a niche group of followers, but they're very interested in either the product that you want to promote or a service or a cause or what have you. But their reach isn't as great and isn't as far. And we usually call these people amplifiers. They're very important, especially if you get 20 to 30 of them, they can really move the needle. And then lastly are the people we call tier 3, and we never say this to them at all. It's just how we are stratifying each of these influencers. These are the people that might have 4,000 or 5,000 followers that impact, maybe 1,000 people. And we look to those people as individuals that are helping us to get the word out. And when you get enough of those people promoting what tier 1s and tier 2 influencers are doing, that whole impact, that whole effect is pretty massive. And it's why you hear about some of these influencer marketing campaigns doing so well. So that you guys have anything to add to that in terms of the influencer marketing and the levels of influence?
I think there are two types of influence marketing campaigns to answer the question. I don't disagree with what you're saying, Mark, but I look at it slightly differently from a practical perspective. I'm not a millennial. I'm not a young guy. My business is built on servicing my clients, my larger clients. And for them, they look at it one way. Am I making money or not? Am I delivering this sale or not? So my views on influence marketing are directly shaped by what my clients, hold my hand to the fire for. And so I look at it as one of two things. I either need to increase brand awareness, which is one type of influencer marketing campaign, which is generally driven by, unfortunately, just those people that have very large social followings. Let's just get the name out and get that recognition, right? And that's, in my mind, one step or only one part of real influence marketing. It's the leading step. The second step is converting sales, right? And so that's really where you close the loop. And this is not something new. I mean, I know Chelsea made a comment, that millennials started or created influencer marketing. I'm a lot older than you, so I can tell you that with all due respect to millennials who did grow up with digital as their native tongue, and they understand it and adopt it more than, potentially other groups. Really, influence marketing, arguably the father of influence marketing was Dale Carnegie, or the grandfather in influence marketing. Or you go back to Dan Edelman, who created an influence marketing campaign when he got celebrity endorsements of California wine on the Johnny Carson show. I know. So, and we started learning from back then. The difference today is that we're doing it through digital channels as well as traditional channels like television, radio, newspapers. And so that's something certainly that the millennial generation has adopted to and responds to more. But the concept of influence marketing is really those two. And you have to pick as a brand, which one do you want to go after? Brand impressions or product sales? And then you align your campaigns to one of those.
I totally agree with everything that both of you said in definition to influencer marketing. And Sam, to just add to your point about celebrity influencers, I think that when I said, that millennials kind of adopted social media, being that we are the first generation to grow up with social media allowed for the everyday person to build a brand via social media. The DIYers, the fashion bloggers, the politics bloggers, the lifestyle bloggers, the mommy bloggers. These people are not celebrities. They are not in the movies. They are not on your favorite, they're not on, the Billboard top 10 music charts. So social media allowed the everyday millennial to hone their craft and build an audience and become an influencer. So I definitely think that there are two completely different categories. You have these celebrity Beyonce, Kim Kardashians of the world. And then you have the man repellers. You have the pro mommy bloggers. You have the Darren Rouses. You have the Ashley Stalls of the world that are all truly have honed their craft in their specific space and have created content on a consistent basis, share it through their social channels, have their own platform, provide their own services, and monetize their efforts. And they have become influencers in the social space that also can appeal to, B2B or B2C, depending on what their services entail.
Okay. I do have a follow-up for Sam. Sam, since the book has come out, have you changed your mind, your influencer marketing book in 2013? Have you changed your mind on anything that was in that book? Anything to add to it, subtract to it, change your philosophy?
No, I don't say I don't believe that there's any facet of the book or any part of our methodology that we speak about that was incorrect or that should be changed. In fact, I think that principle is being taken more seriously today than it was 2 years ago when the book first came out. The only difference, I guess, or the only thing that I would maybe append if I could rewrite it again now, is I would put a little bit more emphasis on how to use brand awareness influencer marketing as step one. I'd put a little bit more focus on that, and I would show how it works together as the step one. I would also maybe talk a little bit more about how if you want to be an influencer, which that just grates at me, even just coming out of my mouth, just trying to be an influencer is not something I think you either are or aren't based on the content that you generate. When you try and be an influencer, and I see here someone asked the question, how can I create something viral with my unique art style? You know what I mean? So a lot of people try and become influencers by following different platforms and following different techniques to drive followers up. And they have a very short lifespan when they do that. It's not a very long-term career. When you focus on understanding your audience and understanding what motivates that audience, and you're very niche and very focused on that one thing, you could possibly develop a long-term career as an influencer if you want. So those are sort of the two things that I would maybe put a little bit more emphasis on, but I wouldn't change anything else in the book.
Chelsea, coming back around to you, when you look at the channels that are out there, whether it's YouTube or Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and Sam, this will be a question for you too. Do you guys see one channel becoming more influential than any of the other channels, or does it come down to where your audience is at every time?
Personally, I think that it really depends on your brand and your product and your message. You know, that there are so many different platforms out there. It is hard to keep track of, what each one does for you, and also having the time to dedicate to each of them, effectively and efficiently. But I think you need to know your brand, know your messaging, and know where your audience lives in the social sphere. So for example, if I was in the fashion space, a fashion blogger like a man repeller, I would absolutely be on Instagram and Pinterest. And I think you have to just be on Facebook and LinkedIn today. But, I would focus on the social channels that were more imagery based. If you were more text message based, Twitter is where all the marketing and advertisers and publicists are. Pinterest
Why on Twitter? For me, Twitter is so fleeting, right? You'll get your message out and then it's gone in 2 minutes, right? Whereas YouTube it's massive. It's got great SEO value because of Google. It seems to me I would never run a Twitter campaign if I had a YouTube influencer that I could run a YouTube influencer with.
Again, I think it depends on the campaign and the messaging, and then what audience you're really trying to market to or appeal to or make, listen. And you have to know where that audience is coming from. Where are they most? For example, if I was trying to appeal to the Gen Z demographic, I would totally focus on Snapchat. If I was trying to appeal to the marketers of the world, doesn't matter age-wise, I would absolutely take Twitter into consideration. Facebook is still the most powerful platform for all of these marketing campaigns. Facebook still has the highest traction and conversion rate, but Pinterest also has one of the highest sales conversion rates for products. So if you're trying to sell a product, take Pinterest into consideration. Personally, the most inquiries that I receive come through Twitter. So I really think it depends on knowing where your audience is and then delivering the content that makes that audience tick. And I think influencer marketing only works if there's consistency behind it and if you've really taken the time to actually social listen. Social listening is one of the most effective things that any marketer, advertiser, publicist, new business owner, startup owner can do is understand who their audience is, where their audience is going in the social world, understanding what is effective in sending what type of content out there, and then continuing to do so. Doing it one time and then, piecing out for 2 weeks is not going to create that, momentum that we need and see in effective influencer marketing campaigns.
So for us, and Sam, the next question is for you. It takes us probably 2 weeks to find the right influencers for a campaign. It's a lot of work, and we've timed it. It's about 120 hours for us. Sam, do you have any better methods for finding the right influencers to run a campaign for a product, service, or cause? Anything that you've developed?
No. In fact, just yesterday I ran an influence marketing campaign for Acura. Actually, I'm still wearing their shirt. I'm still running the campaign one day after. So everybody go to at Acura Canada, TLX Experience, get my numbers up. But and it took us 3 weeks actually to identify the influencers there. And there really, in my mind, there is no shortcut. And when you do use shortcuts, that's typically when you don't get the right people that help convert in terms of sales conversions. You know, what we did, we ended up pulling people that had 0 Twitter profile. In fact, 2 of our 20 influencers that we brought down to this event had no Twitter profile whatsoever, but they were huge on either Vine or on YouTube. Others were very popular and very engaged on Twitter. And so what we did is we understood, again, where is our demographic? So we understood the demographic of the TLX that, Acura is reintroducing into the country. And we said, okay, now where are they? And then let's find people that are talking about that product and whose audience is interested and whose audience also aligns with the demographic of this brand. And so we really had to do a lot of manual work. We use natural language processing tools to help identify the tone of the conversation that our chosen influencers are having with their audience. And what's the relationship between that person and their audience to understand? Is there really a trust level there? Are they following the person like a Justin Bieber just because of that social popularity or that, music popularity? Or are they following somebody because they're an opinion driver? They actually influence other people's opinions. And so it really, like it takes us that amount of time, 2 to 3 weeks minimum to identify 20 to 50 people. There is no shortcuts, unfortunately.
Okay, so for us, I'll just let the audience know, we use Little Bird and a company called Clear, Klear, but it still only gets you about 50% of the way there. They'll give you a large dump of people that are influential on a keyword, and then we have to do a lot of manual processing to get down to the 25 that are very influential in engagement. And they can be influential about a certain topic and not about another topic. So it's like Sam said, it's a lot of manual work to find the right people. So Chelsea, let's say you're identified in an influencer campaign to run, like we identified you in one of the ones that we ran. How do we get you engaged in that influencer campaign? How do we get you signed up? How do we get you motivated? How do we get you authentically like the product or service that we're promoting?
Well, the influencers who are most effective and generate the biggest conversion sales rate don't promote or align themselves with anything that isn't authentically, they're passionate about or resonates with their brand. I was studying at the Institute of Integrative Nutrition because I just love nutrition, which means that I'm always advocating on behalf of healthy eating and healthy lifestyle. Of course, I love to indulge in my donuts and cheeseburgers, but, in moderation. And I got tapped by KFC to do an influencer campaign. That was, great compensation, but I turned it down because that wouldn't have been authentic to what I was truly doing as an influencer and sharing, what messages I was sharing. So I think for the influencers out there that just take anything that they can get because they have 5 million followers, they're not going to have longevity in this space. For the people who are truly experts in their space and have honed their craft and understand their audience and truly have relationships with their audience, those are the people that are most effective. Those are the people that you want to tap for your campaign, because if they align themselves with, something that you're trying to promote, their audience is going to take it into consideration. They're going to say, all right, if Chelsea's, taking the time to promote this or advocate on behalf of this, it's something that really maybe will benefit me and have value to me. And I think for the marketers out there who, and believe me, I've experienced this personally and also have been on the other side trying to get influencers onto the campaign. For the people who literally treat the influencers like they are robots that just, generate 140 characters or 15-second video and then they can just, toss them to the side, that's not how you're going to grow an authentic and great influencer network. For all the influencer marketers out there, the goal should be to have your own in-house influencer network so that, when a nutrition brand comes back, I know that I have 10 great nutrition influencers that have worked for me in the past and I've built great relationships with. I think influencer marketing is just as much about relationships as it is about the content that you're delivering. The relationship with the influencer and their audience, the relationship with the marketer and the influencer, and the relationship with the content that's being populated, on behalf of the brand. If everything's seamless there and if everything really is authentic there, you're going to have an effective, turnout. You're going to have that reaction that every marketer, advertiser, publicist is crossing their fingers for. That relationship must be there.
There's one thing that's missing there, though, and in terms of getting that alignment and building those relationships, I 100% agree with that. You need to make sure that there's that authenticity there. The one relationship that's missing is the buyer with the influencer. It's one thing, yes, PR guys are looking for that earned media, that magic number. How much did I save my client by getting this free earned media by generating all this online buzz? But eventually what happens, inevitably with every brand that I've worked with, they will say, okay, Sam, fantastic. When you have been the best marketer, you have generated all of these likes, you've gotten us all of this attention, but why is it that my sales are only 3% up this year? What did you do to actually influence my bottom line? And so I think one of the things that I'd like to add or append to what Chelsea was saying is that you have to take a look at the relationship with the influencers that you choose and their consumer and the person who buys the product. Because we look at, there's two types of influencers, a micro influencer and a macro influencer. A macro influencer, the way that we define it here, is somebody who drives a large following, somebody that drives a lot of online buzz, gets conversation going. But it's the micro influencers, which often have a much smaller audience and not as socially popular on the various networks, but drive purchase decisions because of their personal relationship with their end customers. Sometimes it's other customers and it's not a social influencer at all. So I think you really need to add that component.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of Sam's comment, one of the things that the Impulse, our agency, has seen work most effectively to not only create those impressions and engagement, but to actually see the sales. Because that's at the end of the day what everybody wants is the quality and the type of content that you're creating around the product, the brand, the messaging, the campaign. So for example, if we just want to get people to sign up for this survey, and that is the goal at the end of the day, then you can't just be promoting over and over and over again. Please sign up for this survey. This survey is going to get you X amount of dollars, your Amazon rewards card. What kind of creative, micro content can you create around this campaign, around the survey, that's going to get people engaged and excited to want to actually engage in the survey? So for example, to give a concrete example, we worked with Lenny and Larry's nutrition brand, really delicious, healthy options for all the healthy eaters and the people who are working out there. They wanted to just increase sales. That was their goal. And they wanted to do something witty and funny and outlandish, and they wanted to do something that would really make people stop and actually watch this marketing video. So we created a strategic campaign. We aligned a hashtag. We aligned an influencer marketing strategy and posted that one marketing video, 2 minutes long, on the Lenny and Larry's homepage, in addition to 15-second micro videos in the social space that were like trailers to the video. And within the first 2 weeks of putting that marketing video aligned with the social campaign, influencer campaign, they saw a spike in sales. Why? Because they've never in their 20 years of, I think about 20 years in this business, had they created such a, unique and different and edgy type of piece of content. It was something different that they were offering their audience. There was a 30 influencers in the nutrition, workout, beauty space that were aligned to promote and engage in this video. And it was something that, we weren't just asking people to purchase this product, we were giving them something as well. If you can entertain the audience, they're that much more receptive to engaging in your product or your service.
Okay, I want to go back, though, to the original question, because I'm not sure I got the answer from you guys. Okay, so we've identified, let's say it's 25 influencers, and this is for you, Justin, as well. How do we now get them to participate in my campaign? Specifically, do I call them up? Do I email them? Do I tweet them? How do you guys do it?
That's a great question. And this is where I actually get a good sense of whether they are a real influencer or not. Some people want to get paid, right? They say, I've built an audience. I spent a lot of time building an audience. I expect some type of monetization. I typically don't do that with our influencers. What we'll do is we'll take a look at what grows their audience, what is of value to them. And so in terms of getting them to do something, you have to incentivize them in some way. If they are a social influencer, so you pay them, you give them some type of mention. I know that was it Nokia? Actually, I forget the phone brand. Once took about 3-4 months ago when I was teaching my last influence class. They took 5 people. They gave them the Microsoft phone. So they gave them that Microsoft phone and says, here you go. We're going to create a website and we're going to feature the 5 of you and see if we can convert you. So they've got that sort of brand recognition, personal brand recognition that gets aligned with the phone and with Microsoft. And so that's another way to incentivize people. Typically, what I look for is brand advocates who are already in love with the brand and who are already promoting the brand. Those are the type of people that you don't necessarily need to pay anything to. They already have a love of the brand and are willing to step up and do anything to be more aligned with that brand themselves. So there's
let's say it's a superstar though. Let's say it's somebody like Kim Kardashian. If you wanted her in your campaign, I mean, I wouldn't, but if you actually did, how would you get a hold of Kim Kardashian to participate in the campaign?
Kris Kardashian.
Agents. We have in fact done that, and you have to go through agents. I mean, I got something on Oprah's book club once. No, sorry, not Oprah's book club. Oprah's favorite things, right? It was a soap manufacturer. And if you're prepared to pay $2.5 million and then pay for the product and the shipping around the world, you can get on. Just call the agent. As long as you have money.
One of the things, you talk about, you have a list of, say, 25 influencers, and those are going to be different levels of influencers. You're going to get your Kim Kardashians, and that's a whole, different level of celebrity. And Sam's right, you're going to need cash for that. But in doing your research, and I'm sorry for being late, I had some technical difficulties. So some of these things may have been covered already. But when you research your influencers, one of the things you really want to look at is what type of campaigns are they involved in? What do they like to do? How do you see them interacting with their fans? Are they creating personalized video responses on YouTube? Are they more on Twitter? Do you see activation on LinkedIn? I think that you can't create a blanket statement for all 25 because not only are they going to be on different platforms, but they're going to have different agendas. Sam's right in as much as you have to find what they need to get more for their audience, to deliver more of what their goals are and how you can help that and showcase, the value that you add if they become one of your influencers. But I'd caution anybody upon thinking that all 25 can be approached the same way.
100%.
I would agree. So, Chelsea, how would they approach you if they wanted to run a millennial influencer campaign? What's the best way?
To be honest, I've gotten outreach. I've received outreach from every social platform that I exist on. In addition to, I always have contact information on my personal website, on the contact page. So I've gotten emails, direct messages, posts, and I'm very engaged in my audience. So I see all the direct messages every single day. I might not respond to every single one, but I see them. So I'm very interactive and I'm always social scanning for any inquiries. But to answer any, how do you compensate these influencers as an influencer and as people and as someone who hires influencers? There has to be some sort of compensation. If you think that they're just going to tweet or post or create on behalf of the brand because they love it, they will not work for you again. And that's not the type of relationship that you should want to form with this influencer because it's not an authentic way. I mean, there's only so much of a barter system that's going to work if you really want to get someone quality and someone who's going to come back to support your brand. That does not mean money compensation all the time. I've worked with Intel and I've received an Intel tablet for working with them for a specific campaign. I worked with Kotex for 5 years and got monetarily compensated in addition to being featured on various different media outlets. I've worked with specific brands because I knew that I was going to get featured on a Forbes or a Huffington Post. So there should always be some sort of compensation. But if you go into it saying, sorry, we have no compensation, and believe me, I get that every single day, it's an immediate pass. And you're not going to get the great influencers who are passionate, loyal, want to come back to the brands that they work with. I'm always excited when a brand wraps back around to work with me again. And 9 out of 10 times that does happen because I will never take on a brand or a campaign that I'm not genuinely interested in. So those are the types of influencers that you want to accrue into your personal network.
I don't know. Chelsea, I see a contradiction there. You know, you're saying that you better make sure that there's some compensation if you want the really good brands, but then you're saying that you're not going to take on a brand that you really, really appreciate.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
So it's either about the money or it's about the brand that you love.
I'm not saying that if someone reaches out to me and I think that it's something interesting to my audience, then I will decide personally if I think it's of value to my audience and will promote it on behalf of them. But if someone really wants, you know, there's different for someone just wanting you to tweet something and someone who wants, you know, more of your energy and your time. And if that's a specific service that I provide as an influencer to a brand and they don't want to compensate me for that service, that's where I will decide whether it's worth it or not. Sending out a tweet, sending out a post, liking a page, that really doesn't take much energy.
And Chelsea, you spoke about, you know, different forms of compensation, whether that's monetary or not. But I think there's also the kind of the third that isn't the publicity part or that isn't necessarily monetary. A lot of times in marketing, you can do lead generation. And so if you offer to split all the leads you get or share all the leads you get with, you know, that influencer, and you're running a big campaign and you end up with 50,000 or 100,000 email addresses that are viable and interested in what you're doing, that has tremendous value. That's well beyond, you know, a $5,000 check, because these are people you're going to keep marketing to over and over. And the open rates on emails are going to be much better than anything you're going to get from just having, you know, a handful of tweets.
Absolutely. And for all the influencers who are possibly on the blab or going to be listening to this, I also think it's really important to take a minute and say, and this actually came up in conversation on a Levo League Facebook Q&A that I did yesterday. And you know, I get a lot of the same question, which is, at 24, Chelsea, how have you been able to do so many things? You know, and how have you been able to accrue such a resume? And the honest answer is that it's twofold. I was lucky and got into a niche before it became trendy. And number two is, for the first 3 years of my career, from the time I was 16 to 18, I did not make $1. I worked my butt off. I never said no to anything. I was up for any collaboration, and it was to gain exposure and experience and credibility under my belt. So for the influencers out there who are baby influencers, you know, the people who are starting to grow an audience, and you know, and I get this too, because I love to have people on my weekly Twitter chats who have 500, you know, followers. That's okay. If I love your content, I would love to have you on my platform. But for the people who have 500 followers and are asking for compensation, you know, I think the platform and the publicity and the notoriety on a platform that has such great traction, that's when the influencer should say this is worth it.
Okay.
See, and this is where I really, I don't have the same attitude, although I don't necessarily disagree with that with certain people. If there's, you know, sometimes money is worth it. I'll go back to the campaign that I just finished running yesterday for Acura. We didn't pay one of those people. We did not offer any compensation. We brought them down to an event so that they could experience the car.
It's Canada, right?
No, yes, this was Canada, but that I don't think that really makes a difference. But the point is that we did end up giving them a gift because it's just a nice thing to do because they took time out of their day to come and drive the car. But we did not offer them any compensation. And what we looked at, and we took some people that had zero social profile, right? We made sure that just because their testimonial in a commercial would be valuable to us in terms of that form of influence, that we took them anyway. So, and there were some people there that had 150,000, 200,000 followers on one of their various platforms. We also didn't offer them a platform, any kind of compensation. But what we did see is that they were interested in this topic, that this would be something that they would just find fun personally, and that their audience was interested. So we were giving them content that would help them do their job better and that would help serve their audience. And so when you find that alignment, you'll find often that you don't need to pay anybody, and you get those die-hard advocates that will stay with you.
A lot of people have the misconception that millennials are greedy and cheap, and we are bogged down with $30,000 worth of student loan debt, the average millennial, upon graduation. And you know what? There are 80 million of us in the U.S. there are some greedy people, but then there are some very humble and passionate people. And millennials are really interested in the experiences that brands provide. So I'm not surprised that Acura allowing, influencers of all over the spectrum to come test drive the car, and I'm sure create social content that they were having this Acura experience. If you're providing this awesome experience, the likelihood of compensation, I'm not surprised that you got people to come down. You're providing a unique, exclusive experience that many millennials will absolutely gravitate towards and want to do. And if a brand can continue to provide that experience, they're going to see more loyalty, just like you said.
Okay, so let's move through the process here. Now we know, I think, pretty definitively how you guys have each reached out to those influencers. How about running the campaign itself? How do you make sure that, and we work with a lot of prima donnas, some great influencers, but a lot of prima donnas. How do you make sure they actually do what you want them to do, or they claim they were going to do as part of the negotiation?
Well, I think that one of the easiest things to do is to make their life easy. When you're asking for something from an influencer, they already have 9,000 things on their plate. They're important people within either their realm or overall in general, or they're busy people for their celebrity status. So you want to make as few asks as possible while making sure they can deliver the most bang for your buck, or the most bang for whatever your compensation is. So when we're dealing with influencers, we'll provide them social content, we'll provide them graphics, we'll provide them, anything they need to make the whole campaign work, including, hey, at 11 o'clock today, we need you to do this, or at 2 o'clock on Tuesday, send this note out or post this to Facebook. We don't want to have them wonder what's happening with our campaign or wonder what they have to do for us. We want to make sure they know every step of the way that we are handling 90% of their involvement.
Any other comments?
As an influencer who's worked for Justin, I will tell you that he makes your life so easy. Sometimes I feel like I'm like missing something because it's too easy. He does everything I could possibly ask for. And Justin, he's a dream to work with. Like anything he asks me to do, I'm always, yes, absolutely. Because he acknowledges who my audience is, what my audience is interested in, what kind of platforms I would like to get showcased on. And there's always a mutual benefit. And I think if you could have that mindset going into the influencer, relationship, and really truly trying to make it easy for them, that's how they're going to end up doing the task at the end of the day. I've got an influencer asks of 3 pages long, and no one has time to read 3 pages. No one does read 3 pages. Think Cliff Notes. How can you provide the influencers with the Cliff Notes version of what you're asking of them, and they will be that much more likely to do it and do it correctly.
But you guys invite them to a spreadsheet, or Basecamp is what we use. How do you make sure everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing on time? I mean, one of the tools that I think everyone should take a look at is Thunderclap, where they just sign on to it and they agree to do something, and Thunderclap takes care of everything else, at least for a tweet. I don't know if they're doing other things now. But is there any kind of management system that you guys are using to make sure everything is done on a timely manner?
No, from our experience, we don't, because we don't like to put that type of a pressure on our influencers, because as has been said, they, to try and get them to do things on a certain time, you're putting a demand on them that most will not respect. What we try and do is we communicate with them through email. Generally, we have a CRM system that we obviously put them into. We have campaign management that we work through. We use Nimble. That's our tool. Which I just think is the best social relationship management tool on the planet right now. And what I do with them is I will schedule those communications with them. And we send them a newsletter a month before the event, 2 weeks before the event, the week before the event, the day before the event, and then we'll do 3 follow-ups after that actual event, if it is in fact an event that we're doing, that will just give them information. Instead of us saying, these are the 10 things we would like you to do over the course of these couple of days, we will look at their audience. We will look at the type of content that they generally produce. We will produce that content for them, back to Chelsea's point, to make it easy for them, and says, here's some content that you might be interested in based on this. You know what I mean? Or, for example, we did a live Periscope feed of this event yesterday. And instead of asking our influencers to say, guys, we want you to use Periscope and broadcast yourself driving around the racetrack with a professional driver, we said, hey, why don't you invite your audience to join your experience? right? So sometimes it's just as simple as that phrase. And then they wanted to, because they understood that this was content that they get to create. Instead of promoting us, they're promoting themselves. So for me, it's all about content creation and putting it in front of them at the right time so that it supports them, and they will generally gravitate towards that without any problem.
Any other comments about that?
Another software tool that I love, and for those who are running Instagram campaigns as well as Twitter campaigns and are looking to also, aggregate and accumulate the total impression and engagement count and also participants at the end of the campaign, I love hash tracking analytics. I use that every single week for my Twitter chats. I use it for every single client campaign so that we can track, how many tweets were sent, how many favorites, how many shared, how many retweets, how many participants who are most engaged people were, also what other trending hashtags within, our campaign work so that we can know that for future content for the client. And also you get to see every single person who's engaged in that campaign through hash tracking analytics. The interface is so user-friendly. They actually compute like infographics for you that you could literally, share with client as well. I find it very effective to keep track of who posted what at what time. But I will tell you, it's hard work to manage influencer marketing campaigns, especially when you have 20, 30 influencers that you're trying to organize and make sure they're doing what you would like them to do. Call me old-fashioned, although I'm the millennial of the group, but I get on the phone with every single influencer prior to the campaign and make sure that they understand the asks that to do and anything that I could do to make their life easier. And that just helps me formulate the relationship with these influencers that much more authentically because I've called them, I have their number, I'm texting with them, I hear their voice, I know the way they speak. It makes it that much more of a true relationship between marketer, influencer, which only benefits the brand that you're working for.
Okay, very well said.
One more just quick thing off of what Sam said, talking about the experience and Periscope. I think influencers like to be ahead of the game. They want to be ahead of the curve. They want to be, on the technological forefront of all their campaigns. They may have their larger audience on one of the social platforms or one way they do marketing, but they're to tell them, hey, there's a new technology we're going to involve you in, to be out front so that they are bringing more fans. So they not only become an influencer on an even new platform, whether it's something like Blab or Periscope when it first launched, getting influencers ahead of their competition, in essence, can go a long way to them wanting to continue to work with you. Okay.
Because I want to end it at the hour point. The title of the blab was How to Create Viral Influencer Marketing Campaigns. And for me, I'll just answer from our company. We like to get a tier one influencer that we defined earlier. If you weren't here, there'll be a replay. A bunch of tier twos, what we call amplifiers, and then tier threes are more or less community members around that brand. And when you launch that with a press wrapper, you should get the press involved in the influencer campaign as well. That's where you can get virality. What I mean by virality, and I know this will be a contentious term, is that it gets to hit 25% or more of your target audience in some shape or fashion. And if you do it that way, the odds are it'll be better. The odds are you'll have that kind of viral campaign that you're looking in within a niche or within an industry. So just to wrap up this blab, I'd like to ask each of you to respond to the following. How do you measure the success or the ROI of influencer marketing? And are there any tools that you use in helping to measure that success? Let's start with Sam.
I measure influence marketing based on either the effect on lifetime value of the customer or a shorter term moving the needle in terms of sales. And I use Nimble because Nimble grabs all of the social commentary. It searches the social commentary of your personalities that you're engaging and actually allows you to attach that, to a prospect and to an actual sale.
Okay. What about you, Justin?
Well, I think that, short term is also interesting because sometimes you're not going to have long lasting effects, but I think that depends on what the client's goals are. If the client's goals are, hey, we need, 50,000 clicks to our site, we need 20,000 email addresses, we need, whatever it is, anytime you're going over their goals, it's a successful campaign. Now, if your goal ends up hitting millions upon millions of people that you didn't anticipate, well, then that's a brand win as well. But I think that anytime you're talking about success, it really depends on what the client is looking for. And if you hit their KPIs and their marks, that's a success.
Yep. Chelsea.
I totally agree with both Sam and Justin. I mean, customer acquisition, sales acquisition, also increase in follower count and participants is always something that is very exciting. It truly... the goal of every influencer marketing campaign should solely be dictated by what the brand, the client's goals are. I've had clients that are just looking for views on YouTube, and I've had clients that just want to see, a spike in sales. So you have to go about doing, you have to align a strategy within that influencer campaign to make the client happy. But I also think that, engagement and impressions are not one to overlook. I think that brands, it's so much more about what product or service they're providing to the consumer. It's about the engagement that they're populating and creating in the social sphere to make more of a community around their brand, not just I'm the consumer and you're the brand, and there's no relationship there. So I think engagement, especially for brands who don't have that much traction in the social space, to be able to create impressions and engagement and traction around a campaign for a brand who doesn't have that on the regular is something also fantastic as well.
And what tools do you use? And this is for everybody. I'll just list ours. We use Mutual Mind. We use Clear, KLEAR.com. We also use Group High, because Group High will go look at articles and tell you how popular they are with your clients' name in them for an influencer campaign. And Justin, remind me if I'm missing anything, but we'd love to hear what tools.
Yeah, we also use Nuvi to figure out the impact of not only how many people we reach, but how many we reach through a certain percentage of people or through certain retweets or reshares of content that we created. It gives you a good feel for not only how far did your content go, but how far did your influencers push your content.
Chelsea, use a hash.
And you've already heard me talking about Nimble, but I also use Tracker quite a bit. I love their platform, and Opinions, which is based out of New York.
And Chelsea, you said you used a hash tracking tool. Which one was that?
It's called hashtrackinganalytics.com. It's wonderful. It is easy to understand. You do not have to be a rocket scientist to figure out the interface, and those are the tools that I like. Hashtag Analytics is wonderful. I also like Tracker. BuzzSumo is a fun one to find influencers in different spaces as well. And then, for just the influencer marketers out there who are looking to just, condense time and save energy. I mean, I don't know what I would do without Buffer. Gotta love Buffer and Manage Flitter to help aggregate an audience that is aligned to your brand, your messaging. You want to generate followers that are interested in what you're producing. Just getting massive amounts of followers who are not going to engage in your content, that's really a lackluster, situation. So Manage Flitter really helps you groom through the social space of the followers that actually will appeal to the content that you produce. So those are the top three.
Okay. Yeah, we use Manage Flitter as well. I forgot to mention that. Okay, we're going to wrap it up right here. I thought this was an excellent panel, a lot of how-to content. If you missed part of it, go back to the beginning and review it. I'll post this. It will also turn into a Forbes article with this video on it. I will encourage you to subscribe to our future topics. It's not just going to be influencer marketing. It's going to be everything under the sun. And I promise you, it's going to be great how-to content from experts, seasoned, experienced professionals. That's kind of our goal, is to get that information for you that you can really turn around and use the next day. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.